People are dying in Gaza. These children that are starving and dying.
I have a Washington Post article right here. More than 60,000 lives lost in Gaza. Toll collated by Enclave's health ministry is likely to be an undercount. The health ministry is run by Hamas. They keep using these Hamas numbers. Then they list thousands of children who have been killed.
They look like everyday Americans. This child is picking up noodles off the ground with his bare hands because there was no food left. So he's picking up noodles to put into his backpack.
There is widespread man-made famine gripping Gaza as we speak. Hundreds of Palestinians have already died due to starvation. This is a fact. And if people like brain rot, addled Mark Levin don't believe the numbers coming out of the Gaza Strip in regard to the death toll, best way to confirm the death toll is to allow investigators in, to allow journalists in. But of course, Israel is refusing to allow journalists to go into the Gaza Strip and do reporting on the ground. The only reason why any state would essentially close off access to journalists is because they don't want journalists to see what's going on. And to be quite frank, I also do not believe the death toll that's being reported by the Gaza Health Ministry. I think it is an undercount. I think far more people have been killed. I think there are still bodies trapped under the rubble. I believe that there are hundreds of thousands of people who are currently missing in Gaza. And if they're missing in Gaza, there's a pretty good chance that they're dead. So there will come a day when the Gaza Strip will open up and people will get to see what Israel has carried out, the mass slaughter that Israel has engaged in. But for the purposes of this discussion, I want to focus on these efforts to essentially discredit claims that there is a starvation campaign taking place in the Gaza Strip headed by the Israeli government, carried out by the Israeli Defense Forces. Now, sadly, these diehard Israel defenders are using a correction in the New York Times. It's an editor's note at the very bottom of a piece in order to discredit whistleblowers and reports proving that Israel is in fact engaging in an intentional starvation campaign in Gaza. So for those who want to read the piece for themselves, it is titled "Gazans Are Dying of Starvation." It's in the New York Times. It's a pretty good piece. And at the very bottom, there is an editor's note in regard to one child that was profiled in the piece. There are many children who are profiled in the piece, but they write that this article has been updated to include information about Mohammed Zakaria al-Mutawak, a child in Gaza suffering from severe malnutrition. After publication of the article, the Times learned from his doctor that Mohammed also had pre-existing health problems. Now, two things obviously can be true at the same time. That child could have a pre-existing condition and could also suffer from starvation as a result of the ongoing famine in Gaza. But in no way does that editor's note discredit the claims that are being made about what's happening on the ground in Gaza. But of course, you're gonna have people like Mark Levin grab onto that and use that to discredit those who are actually genuinely concerned that American taxpayers are being forced by our government to fund atrocities that are being committed in Gaza as we speak. How's your healthcare working out for you, Americans? Oh, you weren't able to save anything for your retirement? Oh, that's too bad. We're, of course, providing the bombs and the ammo and all of the weapons necessary to commit mass slaughter in Gaza. Aren't you happy about that? Aren't you so happy about that? Obviously, the Times didn't just use the story of one person or one child to, prove that widespread starvation is beginning to claim the lives of Gazans, especially Palestinian children. So Dr. Al-Faraka, this is from the same piece, Dr. Al-Farah, said the number of children dying of malnutrition has risen sharply in recent days. He described harrowing scenes of people too exhausted to walk. Many of the children he sees have no pre-existing medical conditions, he said, giving the example of Sawar Barak, who was born healthy and now at 11 months old should weigh about 20 pounds, but is under 9 pounds. Hollow-eyed, skeletal children languish on hospital beds or are cared for by parents who gaze helplessly at protruding ribs and shoulder blades and emaciated limbs resembling brittle sticks. The haunting scenes are a stark contrast to the plenty that exists just a few miles away across the borders with Israel and Egypt. In fact, there are some Israelis who have taken it upon themselves to do celebratory barbecues right at the border of Gaza. You'll see videos of that if you look it up online. It's just too disgusting for me to share with you. I didn't want to do it. Then you have former Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Aguilar. He's been making his rounds. He's been speaking to the press, and I'm so happy he's doing it because he was one of the individuals who was contracted by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation to provide humanitarian aid to Palestinians in Gaza. He thought that it was going to be a noble cause, but once he actually went to Gaza to carry this out, he realized, oh, this actually isn't about delivering humanitarian aid. These are death traps. When UNRWA was able to operate in Gaza and deliver humanitarian aid, they literally had hundreds of aid sites for Palestinians to go to for help. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has 4, and they are placed intentionally in active combat zones. He detailed the story of a little boy by the name of Amir on Tucker Carlson's podcast, complete with documentation. Take a look.
Young little boy. His name is Amir. All he had in his arms was a small bag of rice, half a bag of flour, some lentils that he had picked up from the ground. He didn't have much. And we thought maybe he was asking for more food or maybe he was hurt. And we notioned him over. And he came up and he extends his right hand at us. And so I kind of walked up to him and waved him over. And the guy standing next to me, this young boy, holds his hand and he kisses it. And then he comes to me and he holds my hand and he kisses it. In Arab culture, that is a very significant sign of respect. The gentleman that was standing next to me was also a military veteran, combat veteran. So he's been to Afghanistan, Iraq, and he understands. He was moved by it. He was touched. I was touched. He was very emaciated. He had no shoes on. His pants were tattered. He had a kind of a rope or string holding his pants up. Filthy. Probably hasn't bathed in months. Probably hasn't eaten in days. I put my arm on his left shoulder, and I look at him, and I can feel the bones in his shoulder. I can feel the weakness in his arm. I can feel the vulnerability. I can feel the desperation. And I look at him, and I got down on my knees, or I'm looking at him in the eyes, and then I say to him, I said, "People care. America cares. You're not going to be forgotten."
You know, one of the things that I'm grateful for in this entire disastrous situation is that there are some brave people like Aguilar who are willing to speak out. But more importantly, what he does in the clip that I just showed you is he helps to humanize people who have been actively and intentionally dehumanized through propaganda campaigns, through disgusting commentary that passes as expert analysis here in the United States. So what exactly became of Amir? What happened to him and where is he now? You're about to find out.
So the IDF are shooting at the crowd that's leaving. As the crowd left and they would hit the Marag corridor to go west, the IDF would shoot at them, shoot at their feet, shoot over their head. We would shoot at them, shoot at their feet, shoot over their head, shoot into the air. And the bullets start hitting off the ground. There's video of this. It's on the BBC video. Hitting off the ground, see dirt flying up, and I see the shooting keep going on, like just the rap, and Palestinians dropping on the side of the road. So Amir didn't make it home. He was killed by the IDF. Why? Because they lack discipline, they lack standards, and they lack basic human decency.
Well said. So evidence and stories like these do not stop scumbags. And I mean that with my whole chest, okay? I'm saying it with my whole chest. Scumbags like Mark Levin and Chris Cuomo, by the way, from furthering their pathetic propaganda to provide cover for Israel's atrocities and war crimes. That is what is currently taking place. That is the reality of the situation. If it weren't the reality of the situation, journalists would be free to operate and do their jobs in Gaza to document what's happening. There's a very intentional effort to prevent the documentation of what's happening. It's not at all a coincidence in my mind that more than 200 journalists have already been killed in Gaza. And I'm sorry, I mean, Israel just announced not too long ago that they're conducting a ground invasion in Deir al-Balah. And it's interesting to me that the death toll has kind of stood still at like around 60,000. I don't believe for a second that 60,000 is what the death toll actually is. I think it's much higher. Now, even though the New York Times provided an editor's note to essentially provide more context to their reporting on one of the kids, just one of the kids, Chris Cuomo thinks that's not enough. He believes that the Times should pay a price. They have been in jihad mode for a long time in a lot of ways. Chris, I think you have been in Nazi mode, justifying the mass slaughter of innocent people because what? I don't know. Are you on Epstein's list? What's going on here? What is up with this unwavering commitment to a foreign government, even as it commits atrocities? And he invited me on his show next Monday. I look forward to speaking with him. I hope he doesn't cancel. Israel, according to Cuomo, should pay no price at all for their mass slaughter, but the New York Times should, of course, yeah. And as for Levin, he's already made clear on multiple occasions that he doesn't care much about the safety and lives of minors. Here's one example.
We can't waste our time on Epstein and other stuff that are going on here that some people want us to focus on. I've about had it with all that stuff. We better focus on who we are, what we're doing, where we want to take the country.
Yeah, you've about had it with all that stuff. I'm sure you have, Mark. I'm sure you have. Mark Levin should go live in Israel. He clearly values Israel far more than the United States of America. So since that is the case, and he has proven it on almost every single one of his broadcasts, he should go live in the beautiful state of Israel and leave Americans alone to focus on their own country instead of funding genocidal campaigns in the Middle East. And what about Israel's announcement this week that they're carrying out 10-hour tactical pauses in 3 locations in Gaza in order to distribute humanitarian aid? Sounded like they turned a new leaf, right? Well, if you've been following this conflict long enough, if you've been following this genocide, you would know that you shouldn't trust anything that comes out of Israel's mouth. You just shouldn't. Because every single time they say they're going to do something good, they turn around and do the opposite. The UN humanitarian agency, OCHA, said that 4 days into Israel's tactical pauses, people were still dying from hunger and malnutrition alongside, get a load of this, casualties among those seeking aid. So people are still getting shot and killed as they go to humanitarian aid hubs in search of food. Israeli forces killed at least 30 people when they opened fire yesterday on Wednesday on a crowd waiting for humanitarian aid in the north of the Palestinian territory. Is anyone really surprised at this point? I mean, seriously. Additionally, in that same attack, 300 people were wounded. And this is a territory, let me remind you all, where every single hospital has been bombed. So where do all the people who are severely wounded, where do they go for help? There's been a blockade on not just humanitarian aid. We're talking about badly needed medical equipment. There are videos all around the internet showing IDF soldiers going into hospitals and intentionally destroying equipment that's necessary to save people's lives. Gee, I wonder why they would do that. You know, when the Armenian genocide was happening, these types of denials were taking place in the world, in the international stage. Oh, it's not a genocide, it's not a genocide, not a genocide, not a genocide, not a genocide. It would take, the United States over 100 years to finally acknowledge that 1.5 million Armenians were slaughtered? And why did it take the US so long to do that? Well, of course, we're an ally to Turkey. Turkey doesn't want to acknowledge the Armenian genocide. And Turkey also happens to be a NATO ally of ours. And it is disgusting to me that not only is our taxpayer money funding what's happening right now, this injustice, this slaughter, we're engaging in denialism as we speak. As an American, I am so ashamed of that. And I wish I had some power to control it, some power to make a change here. But this has been an ongoing campaign chipping away at our government for many decades. And I don't believe our government serves the American people. I believe our government is fully occupied at this point because clearly it's far more interested in serving a foreign country, even as it's carrying out atrocities. Mohammed Abu Salmiya, director of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City, said his facility had received 35 bodies from the shooting that I had referenced earlier, the one in which they believed around 30 people had died. But he received 35 bodies from the shooting, which reportedly struck about 3 kilometers or 2 miles southwest of the Zikim crossing point for aid trucks entering Gaza. The IDF said it conveniently had no knowledge of casualties in the incident, but they do admit to opening fire at starving people. The Israeli army said that dozens of Gazans were seen gathering around aid trucks in northern Gaza and in close proximity to IDF troops operating in the area. Why are the aid centers located in active combat zones when the Gaza Humanitarian Aid Foundation is an Israeli-backed organization that's funded to the tune of $60 million by the American people, by the way? Israel has full control over this. Full control. So tell me, why exactly are these aid centers specifically located in active combat zones? So you can shoot and kill innocent people as they're seeking aid and then claim, oh, they got too close to IDF soldiers in combat? It is so easy to dismantle their lies. It's so easy to see what's happening on the ground. The troops fired warning shots in the area, not directed at the gathering, in response to the threat posed by them. They're unarmed. Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank are unarmed. They don't have guns, they don't have bombs. They're skin and bones, and they're desperate for food. They're so desperate that they will literally risk their lives to get a bag of lentils. These people are scum. Absolute, complete, utter scum. Hours earlier, 14 Palestinians were killed in 4 other incidents, 3 near aid distribution sites, the Civil Defense Agency said. In 2 of the incidents, the Israeli army said it had fired warning shots. Warning shots typically don't result in death. These warning shots do, which leads me to believe they're not actually warning shots. They're death traps. Anthony Aguilar called them death traps. Anyone with 2 brain cells to rub together can see that they're death traps. People are being intentionally slaughtered. But hey, we live in America where we have had decades of brainwashing about how the real threat to American safety are those dirty Muslims. It's time to really ask yourself who the bad guys are.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.